Mr. Clark, would you please join me in the pledge of
The
allegiance?
reason is because they were all done.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, welcome to everyone. This is the August 13th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. Thanks for coming out. I see some unfamiliar faces, so let me go around the room, introduce the folks at the dais. We have Karine Hatch is our recording secretary. Kim Burkett is our facilities coordinator. Tim Schneider, alternate member but active this evening due to Scott Neal being away. Mark Tolbert, board member. Board member Bob, of course, board member. I'm Chuck Oyler, board chairman. We have Sarah Reynolds representing town staff, Chris Nadler, our attorney, and representing our engineering firm. We have Eric Cooper. You know, I have a very good friend.
You can
Eric
call them
Johnson.
Lance.
Yeah, I was gonna call him Lance.
Sorry.
We also have with us the town board member tonight, Allison Rudolph. And Allison, do you have somebody you want to introduce?
Sure, this is our new town manager. This is John Falvo. He just started yesterday.
Congratulations, John, and welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. Okay, so everybody's been introduced. I want to make sure everyone's aware that the emergency exits are to my right and left. Should we have to leave the room, please use one of those exits. We will follow the agenda as published. And when an item that you would like to speak on comes up, we would ask, well, especially the applicants, we would ask the applicant to make a presentation. And then we convene as a board and deliberate as to any discussion, questions we may have the applicant. I will then call on anyone from the public who would like to address the board regarding the application. And then the board will reconsider or consider resolutions regarding action on the application. So that being said, next item on the agenda is privilege of the floor. Is anyone here or out in virtual land want to address the board regarding anything that is not on the agenda for this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We have no public hearings that we had to advertise. Eventually we'll have a subdivision that'll come before us after the ZBA deliberates on the application. But as far as tonight, we have no public hearings that we're holding, so we did not have to do any legal notices. So that has passed us by. So I think we're ready to move on to the first item on the agenda. Once again, CPN 2023-126, Canandaigua Country Estates, McMahon LaRue. Reginald, how are you doing this evening?
Good, Greg McMahon.
All right, what's happened since our last meeting? Anything?
Well, we have revised plans and resubmitted those through Cloud Permit. Items that we discussed at the previous meeting included having us revisit the phasing plan. I think that was one of the key items that you had at the last meeting.
Yeah, we were coming up with number and locate the delineation of the.
Right. Among the other thing, we addressed most of the plan. I think 99% of the plan comments from the MRB review letter. We have not finalized the SWIP yet. That's something we will work on with phase one. The other item was there was a setback issue regarding the buffer off of Purdy Road, which we corrected. There was some additional landscaping that you wanted to see along the buffer, which we've added. We added a fence enclosure around the proposed RV trailer storage, a 6-foot solid fence around the enclosure area. Some of the other items included access roads to the various stormwater ponds, some issues, some minor changes with the proposed water main. There were a lot of those were just engineering comments that MRB had, and we included those all in the revised plan set that we submitted. But I think maybe a little discussion about the phasing plan. I did meet with Vince and the family regarding phasing, and we looked at it. There are really several items that we needed to take into consideration. The number of units in a phase, which are now listed with each phase, and how the phase was developed with regard to extending utilities. And then there are issues, for example, no more than 30 lots on a dead end road, trying to juggle all of those items. And is it bulletproof? I don't think it's, but I think it was our best shot at how we would see this being developed. Again, phase one, which is all this hasn't changed, is that first section with the pond up in the northeast corner with the access up Purdy Road and a connection over to the existing developed area. So now we have a through road and a second, actually a third means of access to all of those units. Our water and sewer come off of Purdy Road. Phase two is a smaller phase that's still tied into those utilities. Phase three now brings us down and includes the park, development of that park area. That will also tie in. I got a small note over, not a small note, a note on the side about that pond down in the southeast corner would have to be developed as part of phase three because we're taking stormwater over to that corner. So we looked at some of those nuances and how we, our best guess at how we would move this project along and provide amenities when we would provide those, and also keeping in mind the developers' owners' desires for phase sizes. I think phase one is probably the largest. I think we've got 25, around 25 plus or minus lots in phase one. I just can't read it from here, but that's probably one of the larger phases. Phase two is a smaller phase, but they're all in the 20 plus or minus lot per phase. And a lot of this has to do with how the developer feels they can progress this project, how the market. One of the other issues they have to deal with is that these are manufactured homes, and the lead time on bringing one of these homes on site can vary. These companies are building them for all over I assume all over the US. So.
Okay. So, if we're in agreement, all in agreement, including the board, that this be the phasing plan, then that would be the plan of record. Any changes to it would be coming back and amending the preliminary overall. And then as we go in phases, each phase would be developed as considered a final plan. And we would look at each plan in more detail, or each phase in more detail. And I think one of the concerns I had was you're having any occupied areas where you have a dead end, more than 30 homes, but I think you've got so many various options as far as dual access that you wouldn't have a situation with a single access on 30 homes.
And that's why one of we moved phase 5 for the connection over to Brickyard Road, because I think once we make that connection, then we really it opens the door for us where we're able to move this on without getting into that obstacle with the fire marshal.
Board. Any further questions, we certainly.
Craig, I got a couple of questions.
Yes,
When you finish phase three, I'm just trying to see it on the map really quickly. There's one access to the rec area then? Say you stop at phase three, is there still access to the rec area?
there is access, in phase three, the homes that are along that private drive, there is an access into phase three. There's an off-street parking area and an access,
On drive A there?
yes, that where all of the homes would be able to access that.
That's what I was wondering. That's a short parking area where phase three has the bulk of the parking. So I just am thinking, if I got 1 and 2 done in full, you stop at 3, is there enough room, or can you think about something maybe as a temporary, maybe to make sure there's access to that area? Until you finish 4. 4 would be a lot of parking.
Extra. We can certainly take a look at that. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't, as we go into phase three and we look at that and look at the, what the lead time might be for phase 4, if we needed to enlarge that parking area over there. And then maybe reduce in phase 4, we can, as part of our final plan for that phase, we can
Just
look at that.
just look at that.
Yeah.
One other comment I had was, I think last meeting we're here, I commented on your buffer, the 50-foot buffer. I see that you have a 50-foot buffer between your access and those lots. But according to code, it should be heavily densely populated with trees and bushes and things like that. Do you show that? I didn't see that.
We have a
on the
landscape plan that we added. We did add a pretty good number. I mean, we had some trees, both evergreen and deciduous, and we added some other locally desirable plantings, various bushes,
And it's on this plan here.
it's on, it's, I'm not sure, we'll get there in a minute, I think.
Right.
Utility,
Page. I know it's a big document.
it's, you're almost, I think, yeah, it's after I believe after the grading plan, which maybe one more.
And these are all of great interest to our audience. They understand it. See what we have to review, folks?
And I see something on page.
We're at the utility, there's a lot of sheets.
There's 33 pages.
Okay, now we're talking.
Precious my computer. There you go.
There we are.
Sheet 21, yeah.
We added quite a few additional plantings there and called out specific varieties that we wanted to see.
Do you have a similar scheme along Brickyard too? You're in the landscape, so you might as well, go down to the Brickyard frontage.
Should be one more after that is Brickyard. And I don't,
One more.
one more sheet right there is I believe is our connection out to Brickyard. And we certainly have the 50-foot in there, but we didn't, other than the street trees, we didn't show anything additional there.
I know we had some concern, if you remember, about the buffering the storage facility, which is there, so I think by putting alignment of landscaping similar to what you have up on Purdy, that would.
We can certainly do that, but we show the solid fence, we did add that to the RV area.
So it'd be between the fence and the right of way,
Well,
or the easement line, whatever that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can do.
Do you have anything else?
I don't have, no, I
Is
guess,
the board, have we covered everything as far as pedestrian potential for around the outside of the site. I know we talked about the Auburn Trail being on the other side of Brickyard. So we don't need additional right of way there. And I think as far as up on Purdy, I don't think in the original section, there's any type of easement or right of way provided for sidewalks. Maybe an easement along Purdy.
On Purdy.
Again, the Auburn's on the other side of Purdy, the north side, I believe,
Think,
in that area, comes down the Geneco roadway.
I
I think
don't
they
know.
have an easement on the water. When the water line just went in.
Yeah, there is there.
That, yeah, that goes up between Purdy and Town Line.
I don't remember. I mean, Fisher made recommendations with different
I
variations.
know they kept changing the alignment.
Yeah, but they have multiple recommendation options for the Auburn Trail. I think one of the options did show that it could go on the south side of Purdy and then curve around the Brickyard. There was another option with it on the other side, but if I remember correctly, and I don't know if I'm right, I think it was remaining within the right of way. I
Mhm.
don't think it was being proposed to encroach on the property, regardless of where it was. I'm not certain.
Well, maybe just to cover our bases, a 15-foot pedestrian easement, sidewalk easement along Purdy doesn't mean anything if we never use it, right?
Absolutely, and we could say if, yeah.
It would be over, as far as impact, really none, because it'd be over the top of the sewer, there's a sewer and a water easement.
Right.
along-
Right there.
Along Purdy Road, so, I mean, they would be. The 15-foot would overlap the sewer and the water, which was not a problem.
Okay, well then, is the sewer and water easement shown?
The sewer and water easements are shown on the plans, the
Okay.
sewer
Yeah.
and water are shown, but not on the
Okay,
phasing plan. Yeah, we have all of those plotted.
got that, Aaron? Is it transition? Anybody else on the board?
I have a couple of things.
Sure.
One, just an overall confirmation on the total number of manufactured homes. I saw like in our agendas and topics, it said 135, but the
It's-
count on the plan is 136.
It's 140 units. We corrected all of the paperwork. That was an MRB comment.
Okay,
Seeker and the plans now are 140 new units. There are 75 existing units on site.
okay. And then, thank you for that. And then on phase 3, this kind of like right in the middle of the screen on drive A,
Yeah,
top left corner of phase 3, kind of the boundary is split in between that one lot. So
oh,
if it's not, if that lot's not included, then it meets the however many it's listed in there, 19 units.
Mhm.
And if it's not included, it meets the boundary within phase 6 as well, so. The line to me and the numbers are saying, it's assuming that that lot is a part of phase
Phase
6,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. I don't know what lot number that is.
I,
That's-
if I could see it, I would call it out, but. It's an
Something like
8
that.
or a 6.
Is that how?
In there.
Birthday numbers. 16. That's the phase line going through it. I think 63.
63.
Okay. Lot 63.
So lot 63 would be a part of phase 6.
And we can make those tweaks because as part of each final phase, we'll
Yep.
submit the same phasing plan as one of the sheets in the
Mhm.
final set for each
Mhm.
phase,
Mhm,
so you can reference it
mhm,
there.
mhm.
Anything else,
Okay, those were my questions.
Mark, Tim, you have anything? No? Is anyone in the public either here or there? Want to ask the board any questions regarding this application? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll move on to our deliberations. This has, Greg, I know there's been some plan revisions. We keep referring to a plan dated February 2024. And I don't see any revision dates on your plans. And we like to be pretty specific as to which plan and date we're approving, so you have a revision date?
Well, it would be the date we submitted, I would say the cloud permit, there would be I have to look there, it would have been, let's see, we had
Last meeting.
the last meeting was the 23rd.
Mhm.
And I believe we submitted the following week, which would been, I mean, it was around August 1st that, it was that deadline you gave us.
Okay.
The plans.
Can we agree then, you put on your plan August 1st,
Yeah.
revision date, we'll put it in our resolutions.
August 1st.
Revised August 1st, plan revised August 1st. All right, now we got that cleared up, let's move on to the seeker. We had to declare ourselves as the lead agency, which went through the 30-day appeal period, comment period, and went through successfully, so we were therefore the lead agency. And now we have to determine as the lead agency any significance regarding the environmental aspect of the.
You should act on the resolutions.
Take that first and then get into this, okay. So can I get a motion on our declaring ourselves as the lead agents?
I'll make that motion. That the planning board declare themselves lead agency on CPN 23-126 to 5555
The only revision to this resolution is adding that revision date.
Let me just, I would see it, yeah. Okay, for the questions,
I'll second.
comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, resolution carries. Okay, we'll move on now to determining the environmental significance of the application. We have a part 1 was submitted by the applicant. And we have a part 2, which I guess technically we have to look in a little bit of detail. And I think we discussed at the last meeting, just if there was felt there was some sort of impact, moderate or little, we should at least acknowledge and go through that part of the part 2. So can we all agree on that?
Mhm.
All right, Chris, Eric, do you want to walk us through?
I read and you give the answers, or assist with the answers.
So you have the impact of land, you have yes, but in all cases, you are showing it to be no or small impact.
That's right. So a lot of this comes from the secret workbook, so the first one being the water table, these are kind of basic questions. We answer the first part, yes, just because obviously as a development, there is an impact on land, but it doesn't show or exceed any criteria to go beyond the small impact.
Does the board have any problems with designated as small or minimal impact on all those items listed? Okay.
Over or you want
No
to?
objections.
It's up to you, however you feel it should be covered.
2, impact on geological features. We have no check.
I think we all agree.
3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. There's a yes check, but similarly, no or small impact has been checked for A through L. There.
Right, as you know from reviewing the plans, there is wetland immediately adjacent or kind of straddling the boundary line, but there's no development proposed for that area.
Impact on groundwater, no has been checked. Impact on flooding, no has been checked. impacts on air, no has been checked. 7, impacts on plants and animals, no has been checked. Maybe stop and get consensus on that.
Yes.
No objection.
Okay, 8, impact on agricultural resources, yes, has been checked, but similarly to the previous ones, no or small impact may occur has been selected.
So again, on this site, as you probably all know from your involvement in the town, there are quality soils on the site, so that's what triggers this part being yes, it's also maybe adjacent to an agricultural district. We suggested that the impacts are no or small, but it's up to the board's determination.
No objection.
And are those suggestions, those are based on the seeker workflow,
Right.
I'm assuming?
Mhm.
Impact on aesthetic resources, no. Impact on historic and archaeological resources, no. 11, impact on open space and recreation, no. 12, impact on critical environmental areas, no. 13, impact on transportation, no. 14, impact on energy, no. Assuming there's consensus there.
Yes,
15, impact on noise, odor, and light, yes, has been checked because the proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. But again, no or small impact has been selected.
Yeah, similar to the other ones, using the workbook, we're required to check it in matter of construction activities, new residential development in an area that's not. But we don't believe there to be anything more than a small effect.
No objection.
Agreed.
16, impact on human health, no. Consistency with community plans, no. Consistency with community character. Or let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
17, inconsistency with community plans, no. 18, inconsistency with community character, also no.
No objection.
agreed.
Yep.
No.
And that takes you into your reasons and your resolution.
So part 3 is been completed by MRB. Is everybody in agreement in the narrative? Sure.
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, that being the case, I think we're ready to go back to resolution. Seeker resolution declaring no significant impact as far as the applications. Someone want to give me that motion?
Yeah. I'll make the motion of no significant impact. Determination for the seeker on Purdy Road 555.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're now ready to move on to the preliminary site plan approval resolutions. And before we make a motion, Eric, you want to go over any additional conditions that were added to the resolution?
So the 15 conditions is noted. Added, was adding 3 further conditions. Condition 16, signature lines for the highway superintendent, planning board chair, and town engineer are to be added to the phasing plan. Condition 17, trail easement shall be provided on Purdy Road. And then our standard language that is provided to the town engineer and town attorney for review and approval.
Is that 15-foot trail easement?
15.
Appropriate. 15-foot trails are provided.
If the town were to go for a grant, federal transportation grant, goes around the trail, they're gonna require it to be 10 feet wide.
So 15-foot easement will suffice.
I don't know in years. I just know.
That's what you
have
we use it on Brickyard.
I'm sure you would something.
I think
We also have the right of way there
Yeah,
on the
You want to make sure that
South
you
side.
have it leveled appropriately already, that you can access it. I'm sure you generally can.
Well, I think
Yeah.
we used the 15 feet on Brickyard, right in front of the Venezia lot, so, and that was in anticipation should the Auburn Trail move to the other side of the road, so at 15.
All right, 15-foot trailers we find on Prairie Road. And 18, the correct phase lines overlying lot 63. Correct phase lines overlying lot 63 to become part of phase 6.
And they're correcting the first whereas. About the manufactured homes and the date of the.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the
140.
date of the plans.
The date in 140, yeah. Okay, is everyone, well, someone want to give me a motion on the suggested amended resolution?
I'll make the motion to approve the preliminary phase site plan at 23-126, 5555 Purdy Road.
Okay. Second, thanks, Tim. These further discussion, I think we got it pretty well covered. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thanks for coming out, folks. Pass that to Chuck to sign.
Good luck with it. Thanks for coming in.
All right, moving on with our agenda. We have a CPN 23052, 4790, County Route 16, County Road 16. It involves ultimately a subdivision approval, but to get to even considering a subdivision requires action by the ZBA. And to get action from the ZBA, we've what's it? Yeah. Oh. Okay. You know, I had the original. Jim.
Oh, you got it.
Okay. Never mind.
Threw me off.
We'll get to that. Folks. Let's go first at 24065, 3314 Fallbrook. For a site plan approval. Logan, how are you singing? Good.
Logan Rockcastle Marks Engineering. We're with Fred and Elsa Reed, homeowners. On Fallbrook. What we're proposing is tear down and rebuild of an existing structure. So, you know, we were here a few weeks ago to kind of preview the project before we got the variances, and the variances were mainly for the coverage of the lot because they want to make the garage bigger for a 2-car garage and not a 1-car garage. So that's where the variances were needed. But for the most part, they're keeping the footprint of the existing structure and not go above and beyond the lot coverage. Basically, the lot coverage addition is not a necessity. With that increased impervious surface, we have implemented stormwater mitigation practices to help alleviate that. Right now, you do see a dry well. After talking with Fred and Nessa, they want to kind of move towards a rain garden system, which will increase the imperviousness of the site and the green infrastructure even more above and beyond that. They are also raising the finished floor of the house. Right now, the existing house is 693.7. They're moving up to 694.5. I believe the flood elevation is 692. So the existing house is above that, but they're going even further just to make sure that all utilities and things of that nature
are well above the floodplain. I think that's it as far as site plan. It's pretty straightforward as far as build goes. It does fit in the character of the neighborhood. If you drive down that road, you know that there's many houses that look very similar to this, so it's very fitting in the neighborhood. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, yeah, we were asked to do an advisory report for the ZBA and we provided that to them and that was, I guess, considered as part of their granting of the variances and I believe, make sure I cover everything, board, that our main concern was stormwater. And you were increasing the building coverage to some degree, but you were also increasing the lot coverage. Not over the 40%, but you were up to the 40%.
Right.
And we wanted to make sure there was enough mitigation to at least mitigate or control what additional runoff you're creating and maybe even on a positive side, make it better.
Yeah, well, through the calculations that are on the site plan, we're doubling what is recommended by those calculations. And we're gonna go even further than that with the rain gardens.
So your rain gardens, if you want to just go over those, you have, well, the one in the back.
I can kind of explain them through the landscape plan, because that's where they'll be implemented. They'll be in those two corners there. They're not fully designed, as we've kind of made this decision prior to submitting new plans. Figured we just describe it to you now, and as a condition of approval, I will supply full plans that detail the rain garden even more.
So Logan, that your secondary rain garden is gonna take care of the garage drainage. So
Say that again?
that your pink area in front of the garage,
Right.
where's that going? Is that
So
going
that's
to another
going to
one?
existing catch basin that's to the south there. We can, however, put a pop-up emitter on the north side of the house if you want to have that directed to something that's not going straight to the lake. That was the easiest option, as the driveway isn't the most significant part of the mitigation.
Just for the record too, I did speak to the homeowners yesterday. We talked a little bit about the rain gardens, we talked a little bit about drainage. The thing about rain gardens, is they have to be maintained, and it seems like they don't always become always maintained, which in the long run may be ineffective. So
It's the same
That's
thing with
the-
the dry well. I mean, they both, all green infrastructure needs to be maintained to be most efficient. So whether it's one practice or another, there needs to be some sort of maintenance to make it work.
it would be this board member's preference that it doesn't drain to the lake. I mean, I saw those drains out there on the neighbor's
Yeah.
land the other day. Their land doesn't drain right now into the lake, so I would prefer not to.
Well,
Having
we can,
to
that great drain that is in front of the garage, we can redirect it to a pop-up emitter on the north and have that effectively go
Wash.
into the rain garden.
Mhm.
And then either,
That would be
it'll be
better.
more, it'll be on the surface and not going
Yeah.
straight to the lake.
Sheet.
And that's an option we can take.
That's better.
Speaking of rain gardens, do we have a standard for maintenance of those that we put on the plans? Or maybe we put it on the applicant's engineer. I know you have a detail somewhere in your package.
Yes.
So maybe with that detail, you could also include a maintenance schedule.
Sure.
So the homeowners or any future homeowners would know what's required to maintain those and keep them
I
maintained.
believe on the dry well, they do specify a maintenance schedule every couple of years or so. I mean, it's a visual look down into the grate, see how far it's filled up. But it's the same thing with a rain garden. You can see how much buildup of sediment and
Sediment, it's mostly sediment, yeah.
things of that nature. So I think it's actually easier to clean out a rain garden than it is a dry well because it's more visually apparent.
Yeah, drywall, you just need a machine, a vacuum to.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you have a maintenance schedule on, along with your detail of the facility.
Yeah.
And you're, I gotta ask, the drain spouts are gonna all go into that?
Yeah.
Maintenance. Okay, how about, since we have the landscape plan, let's talk shoreline guidelines. I know there was a statement included, dated May 1st. Is the board comfortable with what's being provided? They say,
Looks good.
just reduce, look at the ECB's comments. Reduce the building envelope 1 month. I think they were okay with the landscaping as proposed, so can we move on for that? All right. One thing to think about, and I know the property owners are here, we know on Fallbrook, every time we do a plan, there's the issue of when the construction occurs. And are you aware, I know that the neighbors prefer having the construction occur off season, I guess.
Right, well, off-season, unfortunately, upstate New York starts right after Labor Day, so, that's when the contractors will tear it down.
Well, those things get to the point, yeah, we're almost in that off season, yes. Okay, just want to make sure you're aware of that. Anything in your tear down, of any value, always consider restore, providing the, the window frames, door frames.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a market for, the interior doors, but the old original windows, they're in there. There's old antique glass, we're gonna repurpose those, probably make them barn doors. Leave one of those windows in as an office or an interior window. Some of the floorboards, I hope they rip up and repurpose those. Attic is filled with old, shiplap. So if I can salvage that, it makes it up a bit. Plus, the mason is excited about, we'll tear down the existing chimney, put a gas chimney in. But he says we take some of those old exterior cobbles and repurpose those as a part.
Okay, good. Well, maybe nothing will go to restore that. Sounds like you're using it.
Yeah,
But if you have anything left over, certainly give them a.
For your collection.
Okay, I think I've covered all my things.
Logan,
Yes.
when you look at the drywall and things, is it possible to actually get those into a location that's not within the floodplains? For not redirecting those?
Yes, that is a potential.
Because right now you've got proposed 100 and 500, 100-year floodplain is what you're showing.
Right.
And then the 500.
Well, I mean, I also don't have data of the revised floodplain, so but you're right, I mean, we kind of know what the floodplain is, so if I could get it above 692, I think that made a good thing there.
And just getting back out of that, so that comes in, you can see the revised floodplain on Lincoln. The proposed revised floodplain.
Right.
That they expect to, and that's something.
Yeah,
And if we could get it out of that.
okay,
that'd be good.
I can reflect that on the plans.
Anyone else? Here, how about our guests? Any of our guests virtually or in person want to address the board regarding this application? Okay, very well, let's move on. I've got everything covered. Jim Fletcher wanted to make sure you show the water service.
I think we're waiting on the record maps.
Okay. MRB did not have anything of. Yeah, your July 31st order. And our CEO did not have anything. ECB, they were concerned about drainage, trying to use the existing footprint as much as possible. We looked at the elevations of the home, it's, you know, it's a lovely home. It's proposed on building, so all that being said, let's move on to the seeker. It's a type 2 action regarding the site plan. Let's put it together with the site plan. Take it as one resolution, but, well, two resolutions, but same motion. Someone want to give me that? Yeah, let me take this.
I'll make a motion to bundle the CPN 24-064/65 at 3314 Fallbrook Park. With the single stage site plan resolution and the seeker resolution type 2 action for approval. With the, how many now, Eric, conditions?
I added 3 conditions, all related to the rain gardens, so checking and make sure I'm capturing everything appropriately. So plans will be revised to show rain gardens, details and maintenance schedule prior to signing by the planning board chair. Eastern rain garden overflow should be redirected to the northern lot side. And then the western rain garden shall be relocated outside of the special flood hazard area.
Right. And that, this is in lieu of the dry well, is that correct? So the first one, if we could just say in lieu of the dry well. That's your goal, right, Lou?
Yeah.
Okay. Those 3 plus the ones shown on the resolution, 13 total.
I'll second that.
Yeah, motion second, we'll go for seeker type 2 and the site plan approval. And we're looking at approving a plan last revised May 16th this year. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Yep. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good luck. All right, now we're ready to go back to 4790, County Route 16. County Route 16. As I was saying, ultimately, this will come before the board at a subsequent meeting regarding the subdivision. But to get to that point, it has to first go through the CBA for a variance request regarding the lot width compared to lot depth ratio. But tonight, we as a board are being asked to provide any comments we may have on, I will say, primarily looking at how the items that we look as a planning board could affect what the zoning board is looking at in terms of its review and in consideration of the variances. Did I say that right? Close enough? Without having the scripture or verse in front of it. So, obviously, our purview is subdivision, and eventually come down to that, but you have to go through the ZBA. So we certainly know this is, we've been familiar with this a lot for some of us older folks on the board. It's been before us a couple times. Is there anyone here representing the applicant? Wow. Maybe we won't go to the. Yeah. Anthony, Mr. Mink, someone. Okay, what I will do, I'm sure there's some residents here. We will certainly listen to anything you have to say and your concern, and we can, whether we make an advisory report tonight,
I don't think.
Let's
I think
hear.
you can, but it's probably not advisable until you hear from the applicant.
Let's take the comments from the our audience. Anyone who'd like to speak regarding this application? And we would consider it now and in any future deliberations we would have on this application. So if there's someone here that would like to address us. I have to ask your name and address.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Harold Bobry, 4789 County Road 16, Westlake Road. We're directly across. And I understand the plan, and you're aware of the petition that was submitted last July with 45 of the neighbors in opposition to the.
Yeah, I think it was in the ZBA file and
And the plan.
we read it. Yeah.
So my understanding is, and I'm reading 220-107. He's requesting a change to a pre-existing non-conforming. And it shall not be altered by way of additional or more intensive uses, physical modifications, property boundary modifications, or by any other ways that increase the degree of non-conformance. That's why he's here. And what we see is, since he did the last phase of the blue driveway around the house, the solar panel, which is in green in the middle there, which was just a few years, there's been a significant increase in the amount of water coming off his property across the street. I've got numerous pictures and videos, if you would like to submit it, from as recently as 2 weeks ago, where you have brown, muddy water cascading all the way across his property. And even increased now because he partially blacktop the current driveway, which takes away more area for water to seep into the ground. And it's increasingly coming across the road all the way down from all of our neighbors and across and down into the lake. So we consider that an issue. He wants to develop the steep slope to the right, where he wants to put in a new driveway and access whatever development he's planning on, which has not, been addressed yet. And my understanding that also in the town 220-107, we went over that, but there's also a town comprehensive plan that identifies the fragile steep slope area as an area that they do not want to encourage development. So that area, if you're aware, if you're familiar with it, you need a gator to go up. It is definitely a steep slope that was identified in the zoning board. The degree of slope is high. I know, so I believe that falls into your comprehensive plan decision not to develop those areas. And that's basically why we're here, because every time it rains, and even a moderate rain, would you like to see some pictures or video? I've got it on a phone, I can pass it around if you'd like to look.
Why don't you say for the, I don't want to spend a lot of time since the applicant's not here.
Okay, well,
But I think
also,
you folks are good enough to come out this evening. I certainly want you to be here.
okay, and then regarding the applicant not being here in the discussion, I guess that's a decision amongst you, but we've all had the opportunity to come, and he was the one who submitted the application, so I mean, it's his choice to be here or not, and he could delay, but that's your option. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Noreen Salerno, 4795 Westlake Road. I sit right where the compass is, my property on the lake. As recent as this past storm that we had, the Debbie storm, I had to call Canandaigua Watershed to come down, Kevin O'Vaney, to look at my property, which was my lakeside, my creek. Again, destroyed by the volume of water coming off the hill. Right now, we're alarmed at the sheetrock, bedrock that is now exposed in the creek. So I don't know what else to say. I'm hitting the brunt as being the lowest point We share the creek, he shares the mouth of the creek. Actually, it goes further up to another farm.
Mhm.
I don't know how much more damage I can withstand. Also, the water, from the very beginning of the rain is muddy. And I remember Chris telling me several years ago to call him when I noticed the creek presenting itself with muddy water, and now it's just a constant situation. It's just, and that goes all the way into the lake. And it's destroying a lot of vegetation that sits at the end of my dock. I can see that now. I couldn't put a buoy up this year because of the storm on 6/20. They couldn't find the chain for all the mud and debris that went in from the mouth of the creek. So there's a big impact.
Okay. Anyone else here or virtually? Ms. Cassie,
I think she's muted.
she's muted. Hang on, Marion.
Okay,
Oh, there you
am I
are.
unmuted now?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Oh, okay. First, I'd like a little clarification from you guys, because my understanding from reading the agenda was that you were, per what's recommended or what's required by chapter 220-107 G2, you have to make a recommendation to the zoning board about expanding a nonconformity. And that's what you're supposed to be doing tonight, is that correct?
That's why we're here. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, it's my understanding that the town has had a policy of not expanding non-conforming properties. Or not expanding the non-conformity, if that makes any sense to you. It's a little awkward to say. The expansion of a nonconformity that you're being asked to make a recommendation to the ZBA tonight, you should not be setting a precedent. And that's what this would be doing, for allowing nonconformities to be increased by a zoning variance. That would open the door to all sorts of harmful development in other areas of the town. If you don't want to go, why would you set that dangerous precedent when it's obvious that Mr. Mink only wants this subdivision so he can expand the number of short-term rental units that make up Westlake Estates? We never had these, we had some flooding problems prior to this development with his new house and with the solar panels and so on, but not like it is now. And the planning board approved that. So would you care as a board to guarantee that we will not have increased flooding as a result of any plan that you would approve for these steep slopes?
I'm not going to respond to that. I will certainly take what you said tonight, Marion, under consideration, but that's all the further we're going to go with it tonight since the applicant's not here.
Okay, well, do you not have to make a recommendation to the zoning board to ask them to suggest to them that they need to do a zoning variance to 220-107 G2?
Again, that's why it's on our agenda this evening to hear input from the applicant, and then any consideration or comments that the board would have, this board would have to the ZBA would be based on our purview of a review as to how it affects any of the items that we normally deliberate in our meetings. We don't want to step on the ZBA's toes, but we would certainly provide comments to them, which they can either consider or not consider. But since the applicant is not here, it's difficult for us. It wouldn't be fair for us to render any, take any action or any advisory report without his input.
Could I ask one more question? The original zoning variance for the 2.5 times depth times width, how did that get on the zoning board's agenda? Was that a recommendation that you made, or was that cited by a zoning officer, or how did that get to the ZBA in the first place?
It was.
I'm sorry, Marion, it's just,
ZLD, it was the ZLD.
I believe it was a zoning law determination, but this is not a grill the planning board. Period.
No, I'm just wondering, hey, because this ought to be done the same way. So if it was a recommendation, are you saying it was a recommendation from the planning board, or it was a
No,
zoning officer
sorry.
determination?
Zoning officer.
Expansion of a non-conforming use requires review and recommendation from the planning board. Other variances don't.
Okay, that's
A
what I needed
variance.
to know.
A variance for expansion of a non-conforming use requires review and recommendation from the planning.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, as long as it's clear, Marion.
You know, clear as mud.
All righty, anyone else out there? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Doug Webster. I'm at 4781 Westlake Road, which is also across the street. The one thing that concerns me, well, there's a couple things. Obviously, the rainwater that everybody brings up, and my septic system's right at the bottom of this driveway that's proposed. So clearly, runoff would be a concern of mine for that. But also the variance, and I believe Marion brought this up during the zoning meeting, is that Canandaigua is trying to eliminate or try to limit people from creating strips of property. Like, I think she called them a flag property. So you have like a strip of property and then, you know, like an access road with a big chunk that you put a house on. And it feels to me like that's the long-term goal here. Because you'll have, you know, two sides. If you split it again, then you'll have two sides. You get a driveway on this side and a driveway on that side. And it just seems like the wrong path for development. And lastly, his rental property has a little access next to my house. You see on the lakeside, there's just a small strip of property. And I have to say, I'm concerned if he keeps adding rental properties across the street from our house, and who's gonna have access to that property. Just general concern, and obviously he's not here to reply to any of that, but just, I drove from Buffalo, so I figured I might as well give you some of my.
Well, we'll certainly
That are in my mind, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to, you know, pros and cons of that stuff, but anyway, that's all my comments.
Well, thanks for coming, and
You can do it by video next time.
Yeah, I know, but it, you know,
They
in
take
person,
it, they take it just as seriously.
it's super important to us.
Yeah, no, I know.
And that's why I want to be here and be a face, you know, face of the property owners, and, you know, it should be an open discussion, and I like to do it face to face, but yeah, thank you.
okay, anybody else?
Can I just ask a question? A procedural question, because I'm not familiar.
Yeah, you're gonna ask what's next.
Well, yeah,
So will I.
okay, so, yes, if he's not here to address you and now goes back to the zoning board, are they able to make a decision, or do they have to come back to you for your recommendation, and whether he shows up or not, to keep going back and forth? That's just like clarification there, please.
That's such an easy question. I'll have our attorney answer.
You know, as we're all sitting here, I'm thinking about that question. We'll have to figure that out. It says in the code. I think the requirement for pre-existing expansion of the pre-existing non-conformity. Okay. Changes. A request prior. Okay, sorry, pre-existing non-conformity shall not be altered by way of additional or more intensive uses. Or by any other way that increases the degree of non-conformance without first obtaining a variance from the ZBA. Upon application for such variance, a request shall be made to the planning board for a recommendation regarding potential impacts. The zoning board may, as a condition of variance approval, require a site plan review by the planning board. That's all the code says. I think it's that the planning board would have to eventually make a decision. You want to say, we got your request, and we can't make a specific recommendation because the applicant never showed up. You could wait a little while and see if he shows up. You could have staff reach out tomorrow and say, hey, did you forget about the meeting? Or you can make such recommendation as you see fit, with or without the app. Those are your options. It really could be any one of those things, none of which you have to make a decision about right now.
Well, I have questions of the applicant and he's not here, so there's no way I can consider a conclusion. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
so if we are still required, I guess we're still required to provide the advisory report that has to.
No, wait, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. In most cases, for example, you're gonna hear an incentive zoning proposal later,
Mhm.
and you are required by town code to produce an advisory report within 45 days.
Mhm.
What the way this got here is that a request shall be made to the planning board. There's nothing about you being required to produce a report. You have to be asked for a report. That being said, you have some questions for the applicant. That, in my mind, solves the question that you're not producing one or saying you're unable to produce one. You want to ask the applicants a question. You put it off till the next meeting and reach out and say, staff, please, or applicant, please come and let me ask you some questions.
I think that sounds like a plan. Yes, ma'am. Your name.
Hi.
please.
Hello,
Hello, you're on board.
Terry Bobry, 4789 Westlake Road. So I was listening to what you were explaining just now, and
Super clear.
the question I have is, the zoning board is meeting next week. So I understand your hesitation since the applicant isn't here. Does that mean the zoning board meeting continues to go, whether you've had your discussion or not, next week?
It could very well, there's nothing in code to prohibit it. But the zoning board will obviously have to consider whether or not it wants to render a decision or not. With or without a recommendation from the planning board. It's a decision that the zoning board will have to make next week.
Okay, what I would like to say in all earnestness is that Bruce Mink and the properties across the street, the rental empire he's building. I certainly speak for myself and I know others. I can only hope that you will protect those of us who live in our homes and cottages. Protect the many over the desires of one. That's all. I hope you can protect the many who live in their homes and cottages over the desires of one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Stephen Sayer, been here for 30 years. And
Where do you live, Steve?
4779 Westlake Road.
Okay, thank you.
Now, this spot right here is where the road's gonna be. I have a question about, there's a telephone pole there. Who moves that? There's trees there. Mr. Mink has had a history of taking down trees without permits and things like that. And I don't trust anything that he says anymore. So, can you tell me whose responsibility is it to move a telephone pole if it's in the middle of a driveway, or how close can it be to a driveway?
Typically, in this or any other application, if you want the applicant to pay for it.
Also, that's 5 steps down the road.
Okay,
He's not applying to move a telephone pole or build anything. or do any
I
construction at
understand.
this point. I just wanna make sure everyone's.
And the
on same
driveway
page.
might move between now and then too. So
Well, it's very limited where it can be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is, but not a lot, yes.
It is in a drainway. That's where the water runs down the hill. It's down in the spot.
That's something we would
Okay.
look at site plan, which is 3 steps down the road.
I-
We're over there. But thanks for bringing it to our attention. Anyone else? We got somebody virtual.
Louis Nord.
Okay, Louis, you have the floor.
Thank you. Let me lower my hand here. Okay. I'm just, I spoke at the zoning board of appeals as well. I think that this is someone who's taking advantage of the town's approach to this is the only application in front of us. And it's been piece by piece by piece, gone from a single house on 17 acres to now the house on 17 acres, a barn that's been redeveloped that's being offered for rental in conjunction with the houses as a party house, a third house that he's adding, now a fourth one. And for years, he's been talking about building rental properties in the back. And I just don't see what stops this from going forward to be this large lot in the back, whether it gets a single family home that qualifies to be a short-term rental or not, if it's not going to keep going. And I don't think it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. I think it's a desire to create a commercial business. I do have to let you know that after the zoning board of appeals meeting, Mr. Mink rode his bike over to my house, yelled at me in my yard, and then swore at me for coming and speaking. And I think that's what you're dealing with here.
You too, me too,
So,
and you too.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Norrie, for your comments. Ted Brewer? Ted, you have the floor.
Hello, this is Ted Brewer, 4727 Westlake Road. Mr. Nadler, Chris, thanks for reading a portion of the code. And if I understand what you read, the ZBA can require a request of the planning board that they review the site plan and offer any critical observations or comments for evaluation by the ZBA. Well,
No.
it appears to
No, you got, I might have been unclear on the timing. If
Okay.
the zoning board were to grant a variance, they could add as a condition of that variance that the applicant obtain site plan approval prior to any construction. In case the planning board wasn't authorized to grant, if there was an exemption from site plan approval requirements.
Okay.
I think any construction here would require site plan approval anyway, but that would be after a variance was granted.
Okay,
If
Chris.
one were to be granted.
And the subdivisions.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for explaining that. It leaves me with a concern in the sense that we don't know if the horse or the cart is leading the parade here. How can the ZBA make a thoughtful decision when they don't know what they're about to set the planning board up for down the road? We don't know if Mr. Mink's going to add 1, 2, 3, 4 houses over a period of time with further subdivision. We don't know where the driveway might be exactly. We don't know what buildings might be in place. It seems to me that this is a confused process without leadership. And I'm concerned that as this evolves, it's just going to go down a very difficult slope, creating a more and more difficult situation for the neighbors. Thank you
Okay.
very much for hearing me.
Thanks, Ted. All right, anyone else? So anybody else can? No? Okay, well, I guess it'll be determined whether we hear this request for an advisory report or not in relation to the zoning variance. And then, as I said, if the zoning variance is granted, then we would look at it as a subdivision, which would be essentially what he's showing here. And if subdivision would be approved, then if a development ever occurs on the lot, it would require site plan approval. So those are the ifs. And at any point in that process, the whole train could stop too.
I do want to be very clear, based on my reading of town code. The zoning board can act either to grant or deny a variance at its next meeting, regardless of whether this board produces a report. I'm not saying that it will, but it does have that option to act in the absence of a report. Frequently, advisory reports from the planning board are required before the referring board can take any action. That is not the case in this situation.
Well, please pass along to the ZBA that we were willing to consider providing them report. The applicant was not here to make a presentation and answer any questions we may have.
Is
Okay,
there a reason we don't make that a recommendation?
well,
We recommend not approving the variance because we have no input or information. Or insufficient input or information.
Is that a motion, Mark?
well,
It's a question of is there a reason we want to do that? I'm happy to make the motion.
No. Okay.
If it's
And,
required
like-
to answer my question, then I will make the motion.
to bring it to the
I
forefront.
was just sitting here because it was comfortable. I was just trying to play mind games.
Could I ask another question?
No, Marion, no.
Mark, it's a good, you have that option. You could make that motion. Or you could not and just, at this point. A request has been made for a report from this board. There's nothing in code that requires you to make a recommendation, but you could now that a request has been.
So Mark, you're stating it's not necessarily a recommendation, it's just a write-up of what occurred today. We heard from the neighbors, the applicant was not present. We do not have a formal report, recommendation to provide.
And
Make a
I would
recommendation.
take it for one step further, saying and such. Not recommending moving forward and allowing it without further information.
I
can support that. Because it's incumbent upon the applicant to be here,
Yeah.
and they haven't been here while all the neighbors have been. So I think that I would support us taking some action to inform the ZBA that
Yeah.
Well,
the applicant didn't come in, didn't support their proposal. I don't know that we can support.
Well, I just want to make sure, in fairness to all parties.
Yeah.
That, well, was the applicant notified of the meeting? He had to be here. Maybe he didn't realize that
He was not.
he had to, maybe he thought the next thing he had to be at.
Made aware of the.
Hi, this is,
No. Sorry, it just dawned on me what we just said. So cloud permit says, dear applicant, you're scheduled for a meeting on this date.
Continue open program.
I think that goes step there, and Sarah's been trying to draw my attention to that fact. No.
Yeah, as he's looking that up, I just, I think it's been our policy that if the applicant's not here, then we postpone or continue any discussion on any application. Now, this is a little bit different and it's an advisory report. Then please let the board deliberate. So whether we, did you make it a motion? Did you make, you made a motion? I heard you make it. And I think, did it get a second? Got a second?
What was the motion? So I can write it out.
You want to repeat the motion?
Sure. The motion at hand would be that due to a lack of information we don't have the ability to make a advisory recommendation and as such. Recommend that they not approve any changes to this project.
Any variance.
Any variances.
Okay, and I have a second from Tim. Okay. You have the motion, Attorney? Have we concluded that the applicant was duly made aware of tonight's meeting? That he should have been here?
I think aware that he had the option. I don't think the phrasing of that motion is a punishment. It's that. I think it's that Mark's motion was, we can't give you a recommendation, so don't approve a variance. I don't think that's a punishing the applicant. I'm comfortable with the level of notification. Also, it's an advisory board, it's the zoning board's decision whether or not it needs your input.
And our reasoning would be because the applicant didn't show up.
Yes.
Right, to defend him.
If, but just before anybody goes as a guilt trip, if the zoning board said, well, we were gonna grant this, but since Mark and the planning board said to deny it, that's the exclusive reason we're gonna use to deny this variance. I'd say, hey, hold up, that's a good call. And that's not, but I don't think that's gonna be the
It's like
case.
grounds for denial.
So I think we're in the clear here.
All right, I would vote for the motion if I feel comfortable that the applicant was aware that he had to be here. And if we all agree that he did receive notification and it was his choice not to show up, I'll support the motion.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think what we're asking for is the ZBA to not take action until we've had an opportunity to have.
That's not the motion. The motion is to deny it. We tell the ZBA to deny it because the applicant did not show up. His presence was not.
No, I think the motion was to not take action to approve a variance, to grant a variance.
Correct. Until we've had the opportunity.
I'm comfortable with this clarification of my intent.
I think that's what you said.
Because he's delaying it, but.
Okay, that's fine. I thought it was, to recommend denial.
I'm also, I think, based on what Sarah's has said, I don't think the applicant was told he had to be here, but I think the applicant was or should have been made aware, should have been aware that there was a meeting that he should be here with them.
Corinne, do you want to read the motion as?
I don't have it word for word.
Okay. I want to make sure we all.
My
we all
understanding,
agree
it
to the
was
motion.
just to recommend to the ZBA because you didn't have enough information to deny. Was that not what
No.
you meant, Mark?
Just
To
for
not
clarification,
approve.
It's what I stated, but for clarification, then I would.
Amend your motion.
Amend the motion to include what Chris stated.
We recommend that you not take action to approve the requested variance. Because the planning board is not in a position to provide a recommendation
At this present
time.
Based on applicant's failure to appear. You don't have to.
I don't even think you have to. Say
Okay. Well, that's the reason we're not.
The zoning board can ignore your recommendation. Table the variance or deny the variance. So they have three choices. I don't think you're boxing anybody in with that. It's perfectly.
Oh, it sounds like all we're doing is asking them to delay action until. We've had a chance
That's
to-
my intent.
Okay.
Make sure that they have our input. And that they can make an informed decision.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to move on.
I think you might not have voted on.
We did not vote. We did not vote. Now we're ready to move on to the vote. You have the motion, Karine. You don't have to read it. I think as long as you're clear as to what it is, and we'll certainly pick it up in the minutes. So, board, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries. Thank you. Hey, folks. Hopefully we'll see you somewhere down the line, maybe.
Thank you all very much.
I believe
Thanks for coming out.
there is not a public hearing portion of the zoning board next Tuesday.
So it doesn't make a difference if we show up or not?
You can show, you're welcome to attend. You will not, there's not a speaking portion for the public, whether you're online or in person. I don't want to discourage anybody from coming, letting you know.
But they do.
So you have the option of driving from Buffalo.
But they have the opportunity to take action if they want you, they have your recommendation to pause, as I understand it. Send it back to the planning board here for Mr. Mink to have his appearance, discuss with you, and then you give a recommendation, but they do have the opportunity.
They can grant
to
grant or deny.
Yes.
Or
pause.
Or pause.
Yes, but they do have the opportunity if they want to, if nobody is there potentially to see it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug, for coming in.
Have a good night.
Out west. All righty, moving on. We have a resolution from the town board requesting the planning board to provide an advisory report regarding a request to rezone parcels in the Uptown Canandaigua Form-Based Code District to incentive zoning. So in order to provide an advisory report, it's always good to have input from the applicant, and the applicant is here tonight. This applicant is.
We're all here, yeah. My name is Jeffrey Cook. I'm from Cook Properties. We're going to present our Uptown Landing Development Proposal to the planning board. I just wanted to introduce who we have here. We have Dave Krista from Krista Development, Ian DeNiro in the back also from Krista Development, Matt Tomlinson from Marathon Engineering, and Steve DeNiro from our architectural firm, Hanson Architects. I always trip on that. I tripped on it last week too, or last. But I'll leave it up to Matt to go through the details of the project, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Matt. Hello, everyone. Matt Tomlinson, Marathon Engineering. Uptown Landing, there's an awful lot of paperwork uploaded to the vote permit that I'm sure the board had a chance to leaf through, and I would like to talk to the overall plan if I can as I go through this. I'm sure there'll be many questions, but we do appreciate the board's willingness to put us on this meeting's agenda, because we are trying to get through a lot of iterative steps through the various boards at the town level. Once you folks are done with your advisory board, we have to go back to the town board for seeker purposes, as well as for the formal public hearings for the incentive zoning. And then, of course, we'll be back before you folks with a lot more engineering detail, design work, and detailed plans for actual site plan review and approval. So as mentioned, approximately 100 acres. And we're bounded by Parkside Drive and Fire Hall. Sorry, oh, there's my map. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Can we switch to the other map? That's our proposed plan. So as part of the incentive zoning, we are in the form-based code area. And I think that we comply with many or all of the goals within there to create mixed residential use within this at a lower density than is permitted within the Route 332 incentive zoning, or mixed use district. And what we're proposing here is a mix of for sale and for rent units. What's shown along the plan left side, which is Fire Hall Road, is the mixed use residential and commercial. On the bottom left there, or the south side of our Spine Road, and 28 unit multi-story for rent apartments, transitioning to single family, which will border the agricultural land on the north, the large lot single family on the east. and then transitioning to townhomes and additional apartment buildings as we get close to Parkside Drive on the south side of the development, adjacent to additional multifamily. So we think, even though we're within 100 acres, we're bounded by many different land uses as we fit into this, and we're trying to create a neighborhood and community that fits in and matches in well with the fabric of the community around it. One of the things that we're in total, we're proposing, I should have started with this, 630 units in total. We are proposing to phase this development. The overall site really is remarkably without a lot of environmental constraints, and we have done our due diligence with archaeological studies, with letters received from SHPO already. We've done a traffic study. We've done a lot of our due diligence to really set this up on a T from a seeker perspective. And we anticipate 3 to 4 phases for development, starting at the west side towards Route 332 and proceeding to the east and to the south as we build it out. There's a number of reasons for that. Number one, we want to get some density in place relatively quickly, and that allows it. We have utilities, primarily the sanitary and water, will be coming from that side as well. And we do have to create a network of streets through here in order to accommodate fire marshal concerns, circulation, emergency access, all of those items. We've done a lot of homework in talking with Mr. Fletcher relative to the street network and what we're proposing, and have his concurrence on the intersection locations for our proposed connections to the dedicated streets. It is our intention to dedicate all of these streets and utilities throughout the project, which has included discussions with county sewer folks, Farmington Water, ensuring that there's capacity, adequate capacity for the utilities in what we're proposing. And so far, we have confirmed all of that with them. Again, we'll have additional detail in the future, but for purposes of seeker, we needed to demonstrate that that was available for the project. And then what we're asking this board for is really to weigh in not only on the plan as it's presented in the limited detail so far, but also the incentives and amenities that we are requesting and offering. And the document that really separates that was an incentive and amenities report that we prepared, tried to really walk through that zoning within the uptown form-based code in a lot of detail to give this board an understanding of what we're modifying. Many of the items that we're asking for relief from really don't have a monetary benefit to the developer. There are some monetary benefits to potential home owners. But some of the code is really not written for single family homes or for townhomes, for example. First floor transparency on a single family home with a 2-car garage is extremely difficult to achieve unless you're going to put in a glass garage door, for example. So some of those things we've really, while we've identified them, are not contemplated or calculated with a monetary value as far as an incentive relief or an amenity offered. So I did want to just briefly step through how the project meets the goals of the form-based code, and then touch on the incentives and amenities specifically, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Can you tailor your comments to what the board has to report on? How the amenities and incentives fit the site and fit adjacent uses and structures? Give the
Sure.
You know, the other things too, if you can.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, thank you. I have this draft framework there. So the goals of the mixed use development sub area are expansion of lower density mixed uses. We did submit a plan showing potential. Obviously on 100 acres, there's a lot of different ways that you can design it, but the code really doesn't put a restriction on the number of units, and we're trying to create a community that's not repetitive units over and over and over again, but a nice mix in a lower density as we transition to a large lot, single family and agricultural. The next goal is to establish a combination of low density multifamily homes in close proximity to commercial uses. Route 332 is on the left side of the page here, and as I talk about some of the amenities, pedestrian connections to there and to Blue Heron Park are key to what we're trying to create here as well. Expansion of mixed residential uses in town. We think that our proposed mix of apartments, multi-use buildings, single family, and townhomes with a mix of for rent and for sale meets that goal exactly. Encourage multimodal mobility options. There are several ways that we're doing this, both within our project and outside of our project. Sidewalks along the main Boulevard Street will be on both sides, bike lanes, complete street design. The smaller subdivision roads will have sidewalks on one side of the street all the way through on all of those streets. And will connect to perimeter sidewalks along our frontage, which is not one of the amenities. That's something that we anticipated that the board and the town would require. And then off-site sidewalks, and we'll switch to the amenities figure in a little bit, but we are showing paved trails within Blue Heron Park, some accessibility there, some bathrooms, and connections to the signalized intersection with pedestrian improvements on Route 332 along Parkside Drive to help support the businesses and provide residents and tenants of our development access to those. And then ensure new development and site design does not negatively impact adjacent residential uses. Again, I think that the transition that we provided for single family homes and backyards back into some of the large lot neighbors to our east and the agricultural lands to the north is a nice transition from the denser mixed use and multi-story, multi-family on the south and the west. And then talking specific to incentives and amenities. So the incentives that we have been able to quantify for a value to the developer, not to a homeowner or not unquantifiable, I'll say, as it relates to the single families. Reduction of transparency for the apartments and mixed use. We are proposing wood frame buildings and Steve is here to talk about architecture a little bit if we get into the weeds there, but reduction of transparency has a value of approximately $240,000. Facade materials within the form-based code, there's a restriction that I believe it's 40% of vinyl being permitted. Single family townhomes especially, while there will be some masonry added there, the majority of that facade is going to be vinyl, and then there's also facade materials with a larger percentage of vinyl proposed for the apartment buildings and some of the mixed use. So that has a value of $450,000. Some of the other are lot sizes and setbacks, and we're looking to reduce those. Again, no monetary value for those, and part of the reason for that spelled out in the report. But for example, within the form-based code, lot sizes are a minimum of 100 feet wide and a maximum of 400 feet wide, and same with the depth. For a single family home at 100 feet wide, that lends itself to larger lots, higher lot costs, larger home costs. On that same, call it 400 by 400 lot that's permitted within the form-based code, we could fit 150, 160 apartment units. So the reduction to that really doesn't increase the allowable density to the developer. But it does allow flexibility in the product that we can offer. And then from an amenities standpoint, and I don't know if you can pull up the amenities figure within that should be.
Is it a different document?
Let's see here. It's a figure within the
Right there.
incentives and amenities report.
001648.
Yeah, there should be a figure like this in there. Figure 2, I believe, so it should be the second graphic there. Yep, there it is right there. Thank you. So the incentives and amenities, we scrolled past some park recreation equipment, and these aren't, I should have started with, these amenities are not items that we as a development team have just picked out of thin air. We did solicit some input from Parks and Recreation, town staff. We met with the supervisor and some members of the town board in advance of putting the whole package together. So this is a compilation of a lot of those requests from all the stakeholders which we very much appreciate. So park and recreational equipment, a value of $65,000 located within Blue Heron Park. Offsite sidewalks, that's delineated in the red here along the park frontage, for Fire Hall Road, Parkside Drive. And out, as mentioned, to those pedestrian crossings along Route 332. New public restroom in the park, that would be building, which there's a representative figure in the report, for public restrooms, and then asphalt pavement on the stone dust trails that go throughout the park that would help to facilitate some of the mobility and accessibility within the park. I've talked a lot, and I'm sure the board has questions, but those are the highlights of what we are requesting and offering, and supported by a lot of that documentation. Then to Mr. Nadler's request from the advisory report, the adequacy with which the proposed amenities fit the site, that's one thing that we're asking. Obviously, we're bordering a park. And as part of the development, we're still bound by or required to pay the normal recreation fees when a building permit is offered. So none of that is being replaced by what we're offering. This is simply what's being offered as an amenity for the incentives that we're requesting. And then we're also, one of the items that this board is being asked to weigh in within the outline that Mr. Nadler put together. Evaluation of the adequacy with which the proposed incentives fit the site. So if there's questions related to what we're asking for reduction in lot width or those kind of things, those are items that the board's being asked to weigh in on, and how it impacts or does not adjacent land uses and structures, which I believe I've touched on. So with that, the team would love to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thanks. Chris, was it your intent that we go through this and follow?
You know,
this?
that's what the
Outline?
code requires. My thought was maybe that is the best way. That'll get you an advisory report without making you sit and work on it, without making Sarah sit and work on it. You know, and maybe these are questions we can answer. So the attempt is to streamline it and maybe go through it and jot some things down, so
before we
staff can do it up with it.
Before we do that, if the board has any other general overall questions, as part of Matt's report, let's ask those, and then we'll, conclude with the outline, Chris.
Matt, I have a question. You say sale versus red, what is your percentage, you think?
Good question. I can give you some numbers. So all of the single family and townhomes are for sale products. So the only for rent product are the apartment buildings and then the mixed use apartments.
Okay, so single family, all for sale?
All for sale.
Perfect, I like that.
And right now we're proposing 230 single family housing units, and I believe 90 townhomes. So there'd be 320 roughly for sale, 310 roughly for rent. So about 50-50.
I'm sorry. There was, I'm kind of shocked. I know you're using a green space that we already have, but I'm kind of shocked that such a big development is not including more. Mainly because that green space is so far down in the corner, and it's these big projects. I've often seen more green space. This seems, that's just an opinion, in my opinion.
If we could switch back to the overall plan, maybe we can talk to that just a little bit. So, we are working in a lot of stormwater, green space, some amenity space for the apartment building. So I think this looks dense at the scale that this map is at. We aren't creating dedicated recreation areas, but with the trail and sidewalk connections, sidewalks throughout, I think this will have a very nice neighborhood feel to it. We are not creating additional dedicated park space as part of the project. I think that is your.
Can you explain your yellow trails? Are they paved or not paved?
Those will be paved, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Asphalt, right?
Asphalt.
Are you proposing sidewalks along the dedicated streets?
Sidewalk on one side of all the dedicated streets except for the main boulevard, which is the, call it the curved back main road with no driveways off of it. That'll be complete street, bike trails, sidewalks on both sides.
There's no, what is a commercial in here?
We have about 5,000 square feet of commercial in the, I'll call it the H or the U-shaped building, on the south side of the entry drive across from Airline.
What do you envision there?
I don't know that we have identified any. Like
Not really, coffee shop, pizza shop.
Coffee, yeah, small retail.
Some type of amenity.
Yep. How the 5,000 square feet is broken up, how, are there spaces within that, or it's sort of whatever?
It's gonna be market driven as far as the amenities, the 5,000 feet, it'll be market driven.
So if somebody comes in and wants to take it all, great, cut up into 5,000 square foot, we had not marketed that yet.
One more comment and then I'll let go. When we get all the way through this and everything, I would request we look at the historian, because he's been asking for our streets to be named in some of the historical names in our area. So instead of just naming them haphazardly, that we look at that also.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
It's just, sorry, I didn't want to hit you while you were
Thank you,
talking.
Mindy.
Yeah.
I have a question. How would you describe this project promoting affordable housing? How would you describe the project price points addressing affordable housing in the town of Denver?
Very competitive. It's not a YTech deal, low income housing tax credit. There's no subsidy, but it's competitive in the, I would say, high 200s to probably high 300s. With a single
For the
family.
for sale product.
Yeah, for the for sale, correct. The market rate apartments would probably be in the $2 range, $2 square foot range. Very competitive with what's in the market now.
No.
Product would be viewed as market.
Market rate, that's correct, yep.
So as a general proposition, that's not the planning board's purview tonight. Whether or not it's affordable housing, it's supposed to be looking at how the incentives and amenities fit the site. That being said.
Yes, I just like to compliment your plan that you provided. It was very.
Well, it's a
clear.
good question. That's what I think this community is, starved for that. A lot of people want to move out this way, and it's a price point that works.
So
Is there, and I know, I understand. that
I have an answer for you.
Sure.
Generally, when you build market rate stuff, new market rate apartments, housing, it lowers the older units on the market's rate, which then trickles down, not affordable tax credit type stuff, but it does theoretically should provide more housing for people who have lower means.
Understood.
If anybody wants studies on that, I can provide it to you, filtering essentially. Sure.
I don't know if that's an answer.
I'm old, so I remember.
Just something I noticed.
The only other question is, are there any other examples of development that's been built in the region that is of this scale?
I'm not super familiar with the details of it, but up on 332 and 41 right now, where Murano Homes is building some product and has some retail pads or multi-story apartment and townhouse. I think that's pretty similar.
Yeah, it's very
size,
similar, yeah.
60 or 70 acres in size with a similar mix of different products. That's under construction currently. Okay. It's up in the town of Farmington.
Center Point from 40 years ago, the planned unit development. It's something that kind of similar to this, but with a golf course.
Is there a reason why you're not showing crossings across that collector road? From a pedestrian standpoint, you mean?
Yeah, so you live over here, you want to get to the park, where do you cross?
Yep, Just haven't gotten to that level of design yet. We want to work with Mr. Fletcher on making sure that the streets are designed in accordance with the design standards. But we'll have pedestrian crossings and warning signs and everything. Do you also foresee crossings on existing town roads? Being that, so you have transit access on 332 and on the other side of Parkside Drive? Yeah, so at Parkside Drive, yes, we do anticipate that. We have not had a discussion about creating an all-way stop. We're not there. For the pedestrian, we would not be promoting or providing a crossing to Arrowline. Part of the reason why we're providing sidewalks all the way down to the Parkside and Fire Hall intersection, then over to 332 is really to feed folks to establish pedestrian routes where Arrowline does not have sidewalks across it or through it to 332 currently. And we did look at that connection point because there are pedestrian crossings up on 332 there, but the main retail, Tom Walls, the barber shops, some of that other retail is really focused more down towards Parkside and 332.
Anybody else on board?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
How much did you consider basically like road stubs to future potential development properties? So right now, you know, the road system is largely self-contained, where the only egress is basically through the two connection on the Fire Hall Road and Parkside. But that property in the north, should that ever be developed in the future, right? Couldn't connect to this larger system, they wouldn't have connectivity to mixed use development, vice versa.
Yeah, so we had a discussion with Mr. Fletcher as well as with some town staff. That's agricultural within the green belt, which limits development. We're at the outer edge of the mixed use, and there was no desire for those connections to be made in our initial discussions with them.
Is that something that you were opposed to? I understand that that's what the town, is it something that you specifically are opposed to, or you just made that change reflected in the town's comments?
I don't know that we discussed it in detail once we heard that feedback, so. There's plenty of opportunity to do it if it's something that's required, but it didn't, given the limited density development opportunity with the current master plan, current zoning, did not appear to be of value to provide that.
It's unique, this lot, in that probably the one big lot we have in the town that has no NRI features. I mean, it's flat. There's no floodplain, you have no steep lot line, no forest. And from a development standpoint, it's sort of ideal in that regard. I assume that in your environmental assessment that you have, and I didn't get to it, sorry, the traffic studies. Is there a traffic study in there? Okay. What were the conclusions of the traffic? Does it affect level of service and any of the off-site intersections or?
No real impacts, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but the conclusion was, I believe, to do a follow-up study after maybe the second phase, just to determine dispersion. The second phase, when we anticipate having both ends of the Boulevard Street connected, so that'll kind of have a bearing on where folks are dispersing to.
Yeah, we find out where they want to go.
Yeah.
Go over the stormwater management for the project a little bit. I know you have your retention basins. Are they blue basins or blue-green? I mean, does it rain and drain, or does it?
No, they'll be standing water, similar to the stormwater management facility that was created regionally within the park. Soils are not infiltrating here. We've started some geotech exploration, bedrock's about 10 to 12 feet down. So we do anticipate we'll have green infrastructure practices throughout it as we get into that design, but we do anticipate retention ponds.
But they'll hold the water.
They'll hold water. Yeah.
They won't hold and then release. Okay. Which adds somewhat to the open space, even though it's water open space, not your conventional green open space. So recreation we talked about, I think, it's maybe a little bit of a concern. We talked about storm and mobility. I think, interconnections, that's something that think we have, we're interested in. You talked about the utility capacity was all checked out as far as sanitary.
Yeah, there's been some great studies, prepared mostly by MRB, but on behalf of the county of Farmington. And there's capacity within the pump station, capacity within the trunk systems that are over there, capacity within the water system. So generally, it is in keeping with the rest of the developability of the site for as far as availability.
Anything in the site that adds to the RTS ridership? So for public transportation.
I'm sorry, I missed the
Is there
first part.
anything in the site plan as of yet that would lead to greater usage of public transportation, so whether there's RTS stops or anything like that?
Yeah, we have not engaged or discussed anything with them, but I think definitely with the density that we're adding here, that would actually be on.
Anything in the rental component that leads towards charging stations and aspects that lead to greater environmental, environmental.
Well, many of the apartment buildings will have individual garages within it, so we can build in some of that infrastructure into the building itself versus all exterior parking. We haven't gotten to that level of detail about providing commercially available charging stations. It's definitely the way things are going on the development side.
Anything else, Mark? No? Sarah, do you have a question?
I did. Kim, can you go back to the amenities maps for a minute? Please? And I don't know if the planning board knows, but we were talking about this a little bit ago. Your proposed sidewalk connections are all out here, but what about this gap here? And are you also proposing them along this section or anywhere else on Parkside Drive?
Yeah, so all of our frontage on a dedicated road being Parkside and Fire Hall within the property limits, we are proposing sidewalk that is not calculated or included in or being offered as an amenity because we anticipate that the town will require that. So those sidewalks are there. I believe that that's the volunteer ambulance possibly property that you were just pointing to, the gate there.
That's the school district.
Or the school district owned it. We're going up to the property limits. I don't know that there's enough right of way to put sidewalk in there. So. Yeah. We could take a look.
We'll get you right away.
We're about, I think we're about ready to move there to there. Is that it for the general questions? If
Just one more question. Sure. I think I read that the estimate was 325,000 for public restroom. Is that just one building or multiple?
335,000. That's one building with two
Men and women's side.
men and women's. But that's not just the building itself. We have to bring utilities into the park. We have to add it to the district. There's quite a few other improvements necessary to put the building on it because there aren't utility service in it now.
Public bathrooms cost a lot more than regular bathrooms too.
It's more than a single family home.
I asked this question when I was on a board at a nonprofit and they gave us $600,000 estimate for I think 10 as a camp in this way of shallows. Apparently you have to pay a lot of money to get resistant grout tile, the dividers. You can't put metal dividers between the stalls because they're gonna get soaked, they're gonna rot. The distance to get the utilities to it. And just the fixtures are a lot more than what you'd expect.
All right, Tim. Oh, wait, if everybody's familiar with the project, then we can move on to Chris's outline. Do you want to go through this, Chris, item by item and see if we have any comments? Positive,
So
negative.
the code, I just summarized the project, summarized the information. The summary came pretty much directly from Marathon's reports, which is very straightforward. But the code requires you to make an evaluation of the adequacy with which the proposed amenities fit the site. for the most part. In my opinion, the amenities don't relate much to this site at all unless somebody agrees, and that's an okay evaluation. Sometimes, you're proposing public docks right on your site. And that would obviously want to discuss how that relates to the site. These are all off-site amenities. But the board should consider, maybe we go through and say, does it relate to the site, the park recreation equipment at Blue Heron Park? Does it relate to the site? No, we don't.
Yeah, obviously it's right next to the site, yeah. And is it adequate, I guess, is the other question. Is what they're proposing enough? Any other suggestions? So I think what they're proposing is out.
Off-site sidewalk on Fire Hall Road along Blue Heron Park frontage.
That provides a connection. I think it's needed, and I think it's certainly part of the project and would be an asset to the project.
Asset to the project. And uptown maybe?
In the area.
Okay, off-site sidewalk along Parkside Drive to Route 332, and Sarah mentioned this.
I think it was a good point. I think it's something that should be noted in this, that consideration should be given to the out parcel between Blue Heron Park and the park site frontage of the project.
Wait, can you say that again?
Sidewalk should be considered to be installed on the frontage of the out parcel between Blue Heron Park and the project frontage and park site.
Now Eric raised the other point of connectivity. Looks like there's sidewalk along a significant portion of Parkside Drive, especially once the applicant adds along their entire frontage. And there's some all the way up to County Road 28. I guess Candlewood doesn't front on Parkside. Okay, so consideration of sidewalk being added to out parcel between
Blue Heron Park and the project frontage of parks.
And Eric's point about crosswalks, is that something you want to add there?
Is that where to put it, or? I think that's more project related. I don't think it's involved
Okay.
with the amenities and incentives. I think that's something we would do as part of the site plan.
Public restrooms at Blue Heron Park.
Amen.
What do we think? Is this a good?
In support of, or in favor of, or something of that positive
I'm sure
nature.
people from the project are gonna
Yes.
use it.
Can I ask a question, yeah, just real quick?
Sure.
I think on the amenity plan, you showed like potential locations of like the restroom and like the playground stuff. Is that like where it's proposed to go again, babe? Okay.
We're gonna need to coordinate with the Parks and Rec Department and staff for the town.
Okay,
It's just a placeholder for final location.
just as a parent with a young kid, it'd be nice to have the restroom closer to the playground, but obviously there's no coordination. It's not finalized to anybody else.
Spoken like a true parent.
When would those amenities?
You have a
go
boy,
in?
right?
What under
What's in
the
those-
phase?
Yeah, what phase would those amenities go in? Like,
What's that, Bob?
what phase would those amenities go in? Those incentives
Provide phasing schedule.
for those incentives.
It's for all of them.
Yes.
I believe the developer's intention is the first phase, all amenities would be constructed, there may be some. With the sidewalk that's left out, if our road connects or something, but
for the most part, all amenities will be provided on front.
Is there a formula for number of public restrooms per square foot of park? I was just thinking outhouse park is 2 public restrooms.
2 buildings or
Buildings.
2?
There's likely not a formula. The National Recreation Parks Association used to have like, facilities per whatever. They don't really use formulas like that anymore. They generally just go with standards or whatever they call them, which is more to say like, it depends on the context.
I think that's a good point. Outhouse, I drove by Blue Heron, on my way down here. And it's trails, it's open space. Outhouse has a bunch of fields and facilities. This will actually be gaining those. So I think it's a usage question. Once you put a playground and bathrooms, you may get more usage or longer duration usage at Blue Heron. Right now, just driving by at 5 p.m., it looked like you had a lot of people walking their dogs along those trails, which takes about an hour and then you go home.
Frisbee golf.
That's it. Yeah. That may change. It may become more of a long-term stay situation with the added amenities. Speaking of which, asphalt pavement on the stone dust trails at Blue Heron Park. Good amenity or bad amenity? Needed asset. Tell you, every single person walking there was walking next to the stone dust trail. I don't know why that is, but it's just something I noticed.
Bubbles.
Probably.
You're right.
Let's
go on the water.
Is there?
What's your numbers here?
I'm at that just completed 4A5. Now, we're gonna get to the evaluation of the adequacy with which proposed incentives fit the site. Lot dimensions. This is the incentive the town is giving back to the applicant in exchange for providing these amenities is we're gonna change the required lot dimensions. And the incentive and amenity report, I thought did a very good job describing what they were looking for, why they were looking for it, and why it doesn't really provide a financial benefit to the developer. It will be a benefit to future homeowners. It's the first time I've seen an incentive zoning application where there's legitimately no financial value to a lot of the incentives. But the law doesn't require that. It doesn't require a flat exchange rate. It can be, we're looking for these incentives, and this is something I think the town leadership has talked the applicant about with and said this is something we're willing to consider. Because we understand, the whole goal is to drive development to this area of the town, and the form-based code isn't getting it done on a 100-acre parcel. For what this developer would like to see, and so that's why the town is considering an incentive no over there.
How many estimates on costs, so what the incentives will cost for meeting established?
The amenity, the parking records. Don't quote me on this. I believe everything that they're proposing is the cost of doing business. It's not going to add anything to the town budget beyond, maybe that things, but I have talked to the town supervisor and your highway superintendent. It's understood that will add expense. And if the town is willing to bear the expense of cleaning the bathrooms, maintaining the trail, I think the asphalt trail will be cheaper. The town understands and accepts that it will bear that expense because it wants the amenity. If someone's gonna give you a free bathroom, you could probably move on this thing. Might not be the best way to phrase it.
Yeah, I sort of look at this section in granting this, essentially this relief. It hopefully drives this project toward a more affordable house product. And we would certainly request that in granting these, this relief and these incentives that, well, we would see an end result of a more affordable home in that area of the town. So I think you're gonna ask the question, are these good? Are these good to provide relief for? And I guess, yes, they would be if we see in return a product that, not a cheap product, but a product that more people can afford. Again, without knowing what the law dimensions, setbacks, all these are, would be. It's difficult for me to put a thought process on how that would look. I think you have a lot of dimensions.
Yep. Yeah, in our report, we specifically go through lot widths, lot depths, how it varies from the
Setback relief.
setback.
A big report. Yeah, the driveway setback specifically, what do you said,
Yeah, so
where are you moving the driveways from?
the form-based code really tries to push buildings up to the front of the lot and build everything between 5 and 20 feet, which really doesn't work for a single family home or a townhome. We're trying to get a car between the road and. So I believe we're proposing 25 feet for front setbacks for all the townhomes. As a minimum, to make sure that there's parking space for a car behind the sidewalk, behind the curb. So that's requesting relief, for example. But again, not really a monetary benefit to the developer for the relief that we're requesting.
So not blocking the sidewalks.
Exactly.
But I think the question was, right, I think that's a good point. But it looks like all your driveways are to one side of each lot. So you're also requesting driveway setback.
Yeah, so for example, we're requesting 60-foot wide minimum lots, and driveways are closer than 10 feet if we reduce side setbacks to 6 feet for the setback. So they kind of piggyback on each other. Take a look at the.
Can you say that again?
Sure. So sorry, I'll give you.
But maybe
slower,
slower.
so I'm not trying to restate it.
They're asking for relief from the 10-foot setback.
There's a 10-foot driveway side.
From the
setback
property line.
within the code for the property line. We were requesting for that to be reduced to 5 feet, or 6 feet.
Yeah, okay.
For the side setback, because we were going with narrower lot widths. Necessarily, the house is closer to the side setback, therefore the driveway is as well.
And your garage, it looks like it's this concept plan. Is in the front corner of the house. Ballparking it, you could probably meet 10-foot setback. If you put the driveway straight up the middle of each lot. But that doesn't really meet with the product you're looking for.
Correct. And could drive other relief requests from the code as well.
Are you offering various styles and types of homes?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, footprint.
Yeah, in the back of it, there's okay, representative footprints, both of the single family and the townhomes and facade options there. I think there's a total of 5 or 6 different footprints and options that are available.
I mean, right now you have the driveways on one side of the lot, and then the next lot is on the same side of the lot, so you don't have 2 driveways fairly close to each other, so.
Yeah, we will have that in rare instances, but when we go through the site design, for example, typically a single family home, you don't want to fill in the garage, so you put the driveway on the high side, so it kind of is repetitive until you get to going downhill and you switch it. So, I mean, those are detail items as we go through design that we will be fleshing out.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing, having a 5-6 foot setback, butting up against another 5 foot, 6 foot setback. Is that an issue? I don't know.
So that's the minimum relief. Many of these offerings are 36 feet wide. I think you can go with an option up to 50 feet wide, but it's gonna be very rare that you're gonna have up to 5 feet on both sides of the lot. I think the majority of the product is 40 feet wide or narrower, which would leave 10 feet on each side. But we do wanna allow whoever's moving in here to have the option to go with the largest footprint for each of the lots.
Okay.
Oh, so it'll be determined when they pick their model.
Correct.
Yep, what's the square footage on, ballpark square footage, are these 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 square
For the
foot?
single family houses.
Yeah,
I think they're all less than 2,000. I think they're 1,300 to 1,800 roughly.
Are they all 2 stories?
There are some ranch units, yep. I believe all the townhouses are 2-story, but the single family has some ranch options.
Spruce.
okay, facade incentives, if the board's comfortable with the setback issue.
Yeah, the setback and, yeah, and you, the facade, requesting the vinyl.
Yeah, vinyl and transparency, transparency, that makes sense. Given the you proposed use and product.
Again, in the interest of keeping the cost down, certainly. The vinyl's okay with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Evaluation of how amenities relate to adjacent uses. And or structures. You know, all your. Well, a lot of your amenities provided are on Blue Heron Park. So let's start there. Park recreation equipment at Blue Heron Park. It seems like it's a needed. Amenity at the park. Site, it hasn't been cited yet. But your parks committee, park and rec director, and highway superintendent. Probably the people to do that. I think we could say the same in terms of citing. The public restrooms at Blue Heron Park. And the asphalt pavement is already cited. Offsite sidewalk on Fire Hall Road.
Yeah, aren't you sort of doing the same thing we did today, or just, how's this different?
Because I read the code, and step 1 is, how does it relate to this site?
Oh,
Project site. Step 2 is how does it relate to other adjacent sites? I don't think there's a ton to say there, because we did cover it.
no, I don't know. We read the sidewalk and fire hall and had the start. Needed and accepted.
Okay, so that takes us to evaluation of how the incentives relate to adjacent land use of these structures. My thought is it probably doesn't, except interconnected with other uses and structures on the site, or that will come up on the site eventually. Impact of incentive zoning on planning, design, and layout of the project. You know, they've provided what they could do under the existing code, which is, you know, not great planning design. Does not provide any plan. It provides a lot of units, which, you know, and the cause issues. The design and layout, any comments on that? Any thoughts, problems?
It's a lot of that's what we were talking about at the beginning,
Yeah.
in terms of, traffic and stormwater and
Yeah.
recreation and
Flow.
mobility within the project, trail system.
Yeah, okay. Open space, Bob, did that? Are you satisfied there? Do you want to raise that issue?
My personal opinion is I think there should be more green space for that amount. And Blue Heron is a nice place, it's way in the corner. I've been thinking. If I lived in the top corner and my grandkids were coming. I'm going a long distance. If not by my car, probably to get there to a rec area.
Is there gonna be an association?
Yeah, so the homeowners association and you know, I don't think that it's any different than a typical subdivision. It's large, it's 100 acres,
Yeah.
but you know, typical subdivision is not creating dedicated park space within its development limits in order to avoid getting in a car to go to a.
We
rec area.
normally try to give green space in each of our development.
Yep, yeah, and there will be quite a bit of green space around the pond, stormwater, again, the sidewalk connections, those kind of things, just won't be a dedicated park with recreation area, if you will, so.
Back to no association question. I just went through your house layouts, no basements. No,
I don't know that I know the answer to that. In the single family. Yeah.
huh?
There will be basements.
No, plans don't show them. Oh, only in your townhomes. So,
The single family and townhomes will have basements,
okay.
not the apartments.
Okay, because that brings up the point to me, because these houses, they're tight, in storage.
Yep.
And that would be everything being stored outside.
Or in the garage.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Stuff.
Well, so that's, I mean, that's. Considered. Storage, internal storage.
Well, if they have basements, then that should be fine. But their plans don't show basements.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. In this case. I don't know. I don't know.
I might have
Probably
found-
not. There should be, you said there will be an HOA, right?
No.
No.
The apartments will be managed like
Yeah.
typical apartments, single family and townhomes, there no association.
Who's gonna manage these stormwater funds?
Will be under maintenance agreements, stormwater maintenance agreements to the town.
Who's gonna own?
Well, remaining lands that are conveyed as part of the single family will typically remain under control of the developer that owns the apartment homes.
It seemed like a good idea for the apartment owner. 20 years from now, but that's something we can obviously work out during the site plan process. I think. Because of the size and scale of this project. You know, there's site questions that can't be answered at this point. And the developer shouldn't, and you know, to produce the information to do that until they know that this is something that planning board is interested in, and more importantly, the town is interested in it. The memo I sent around, you know, sort of indicates the process to do that. I think this will require you know, a lot of detail and added requirements during the site plan approval process. For example, who's gonna own and manage that stormwater pond. I think it's likely that at some point throughout this process, you're going to be asked to provide a lot more trails through the project. Just a guess, I'm not suggesting it, I'm saying, I bet sometime people are gonna say, hey, why don't you put a ton more trails in to connect to Candlewood and to your apartments and to the other side of Blue Heron. You know, it's an option, it's something we should consider, at which point somebody's gotta own and maintain those. I'm not pushing towards an HOA, I'm saying those are all sort of issues and details that can be sorted out through the site plan process. After the, you know, if everything works out with the advisory report, the town board can make a decision, and then it essentially eventually comes back to the planning board to really hammer out the details. To some extent, I'm just telling myself that to limit our scope.
Matt, normally the planning board doesn't get involved with the financial side of things, but you started to say about the value of the amenities that you were going to provide. How does that shake down in terms of give and take financially? It's probably in your report somewhere, but
Yeah,
is the dollar and cents of what you're giving and what you're taking.
So the total value. The total estimated value to the developer, 689,500. Total. Of the amenities that's offered is slightly more than that. I just have to find where I put that number.
Okay, so
I think it's around 750,000 total, and nice, 765. Sorry, I'll find it here in a second.
okay.
Put my pages out of order here, 712,500, I'm sorry, so roughly 25,000 more incentives offered or amenities offered that incentives requested.
Could the towns benefit?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, I was just, if we added that out parcel sidewalk and any other items that, Mark, I want to go back, things you were talking about. I mean, those are the kind of things you can put in the park, possibly some of them.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with student charging in the park.
Yep.
Both increased usage and also offset some of the environment. It's literally.
We want to get that in the recommendation.
So I would suggest.
Chris, since you're the secretary on this, we want, Mark has another suggestion we include in our recommendations.
Yes, sir.
The addition of charging stations to the park area, park and around the park area.
On Fire Hall Road.
Blue Heron Park.
Or Blue Heron Park.
In Blue Heron Park.
You could actually look at, even look at the part of the, for the apartments as well. But then even how we power and use the facilities that are built, those could be moved toward alternative energies as well.
What you guys going for like an energy credit, LED or something?
for this project.
This project, yeah, I think another project, okay.
Mark, what do you mean?
So two things, so it's on apartment complexes, so you need to look at public access charging stations for the apartments, and then also for the parking area related to the park.
Okay. And then consider alternative energy
For the operation of the bathroom, for example, so you can put solar on that, it allows whatever power that goes into that, as well as water reclamation. Or any of the gray water that can be used within.
One other item, it might be premature, landscaping and, I know it's something we'll get into the site plan for sure. And it's something we other than to say everything be native species, make sure that all landscaping is.
There's a lot of landscaping requirements built within the code that we'll have to demonstrate compliance with. I don't think you need to put anything extra in there, given how much is required for parking.
Yeah, I
areas.
mean, we haven't really seen a landscaping
Yeah, we just.
plan and schedule yet. Just thinking ahead. Forewarned.
Similar to that, I think I'd like to commend you for trying out the incentives that you put together. Of course, I think we'd all like to see more green space. But those are the types of things that I think we can get into when we get inside. And you're thinking through that, this is a heads up to, as we look specifically around stormwater management. There's a lot that's happening related to the size of the events that we have been planning for 100-year and larger storms, just because we're seeing them. That's where I think that stormwater management component really is going to come in, how those systems are maintained. And that's going to become more critical about the longevity of those. So if the town accepts that, then the town accepts it. I know there'll be pushback as we start getting this.
Yeah. All right, will you prepare a draft?
I'll prepare that
Okay.
and
Thank you.
distribute it to this group.
Comment back to you.
Comment back directly to me, copy to Sarah, please. Don't copy.
Don't
each
share
other.
it to each other.
And then once there's consensus, we'll distribute it to the town board and the final version to everybody. And if there's consensus on my draft after, obvious revisions, we'll go ahead and finalize it and I'll send them and say, hey, everybody, this is the final version that we're sending to the town board. If there's concerns or things that I'm not comfortable putting in without further discussion of the board or a decision of the board, we'll bring it back. At your next meeting at the end of this month.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in. Really, it's a good project. It's a great project. I'm really looking forward to it. It's just, we're trying to work to. Make everything so.
Thank you for being well prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks, guys. You solved all your timing problem.
Let the other- So this report will be submitted to the town board, once the draft has been finalized and, so you'll get a copy of it. Right, go from there, all right? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Okay,
Right on.
make sure I'm on the right.
Yes.
All righty, let's do the minutes from the last meeting. It's July. Whatever it was. Okay. Any additional corrections or additions to the minutes? From what Marina said, if not, give me a motion.
So.
Second.
Okay, a motion second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna give out some money. We got a couple releases.
Mark, you're up.
Are you ready, Mark?
I like to
Sure.
better.
Oh, no. I usually set your
Amanda, do you want to give out money?
like off, we can, I can,
When do you want to start?
if you got them on paper and I'll,
I think my rules, but.
you wanna call it?
Motion.
Since the planning board report wasn't there.
Then how about I take the first one that's in the emails here, releasing to 23,145, 19,975
I don't just.
dollars for Morel Phase 2A grading.
Second. Okay, get a motion second. Are these the originals here?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So
I'll let you take it tonight.
Um,
Call it.
Okay,
I'll call it tonight.
further discussion? You have all the paperwork there. What do you want to do? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Money's released. Next.
It's motion to release on CPN 23-032 and 23-057, 4955 Island Beach Drive in the amount of $2,426.
I will second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. Motion. 2426, all right. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Can we do it? I'll do it. I'll make a motion to release $5,000 for CPN 20058 Fox Ridge Phase 5B3.
Second.
Okay, Susan, fine. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we don't do these. Oh, that's part of the shirt. That's acceptance. Okay, that's it.
So,
Couple more. Yeah, it's just like that. Okay. Anybody have any other board business? John, anything you'd like to say at all? Other than. glad
He's
you're
still
here.
awake.
I'm still here.
Thanks for coming
Well,
out.
just, want to come and observe and start learning and absorbing all the information I can, so.
Well, if we can help you in any way. We do a lot of advisory reports. We're trying to do.
We
it.
really don't.
Sounds like.
it's a new fun thing.
We do love it when the town manager is really in support of projects and something tells us that.
Yeah.
So.
Or
I mean.
or he's being serious.
Yes,
That's helpful.
that's true.
Yes.
Or the opposite.
Yes.
Do you think there's a problem?
Well, I like the uplands project that it's.
Yeah.
But on other applications, though, I think that's important, that staff.
Mhm. Mhm.
say that.
Okay. So, training, keep
Yeah.
in the training.
Can we ask Kim to, send out another spreadsheet for our training?
Sure.
Thank you.
There's one tomorrow at noon.
And next meeting is, you may remember, I will not be here. I saw the agenda, so I'm out of here.
Y'all better be here.
I'll run the meeting. We'll get together with Bob. I'll go over it with him, but I'm sure. Good job as usual. And anything else? If not,
I'm passing the baton.
Motion to adjourn at 20:38.
Wow.
Second,
so you guys have traded tests.
we're just trying.
That's good. You a little variety.
We've done it.
All right, get a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
You want that?
Good night.
Hmm?